Welcome back to Rhythm's Riddle. Now, you're not going to hear me right now talk about current events. It doesn't mean I don't know what's going on. In fact, I'm highly informed. But there are just literally more important things to talk about, and that's music. And of course, when I do get political, it's usually not about current events. Once in a while, though, you'll find me mentioning current events, especially, well, what's even more current is the AI question, the AI takeover, which is revolting. What we have now on social media is probably like at least half of the accounts, perhaps at least half the accounts or more are fake. They're generated by artificial intelligence, which is just a computer program. Essentially, you could say, "Oh, it's alive! Oh, it's alive!" But no, you've just given it parameters. You've given it deeper parameters, but they're still parameters. It still has no heart. The computer has no heart, no understanding of human emotions, and so they're mimic machines, and they act like mimics sitting out there posing as human beings, and then also as acting as mimics, they mimic nastiness, they mimic manipulation, and so they're essentially at war with human emotions. Because, and when I say war, I say that very knowledgeably, that they're literally, it's a war against human emotions. It is a war because it's being waged by entities that have no notion of ethics, no notion of human feelings. Nothing, no heart, no bone, no blood, no breath, no ancient social history, nothing like that. No, they're mimic machines out for very short-term, myopically short-term utilitarian aims. And so those are the talks that I think it's the most important thing to point out right now in what's happening in history. I'm not saying all the rest is bad. We got to know what's going on everywhere else too. But we can't just take our information from the corporate pipers. They're all piping the same platitudes. They really are, and they're glaring moral deficiency and their lack of intellectual rigor, and then also the lack of a love of history. Everything that the mainstream media reports, all of the news, there's no love of history underneath what's being said. The voices that are saying it didn't even come up with the words. Other panels of people came up with the things to say, and then they have professional voices come out to say those very things. It's the epitome of falsehood and fakeness. And so inevitably in all things, the major questions will not be asked, they will not be confronted. In all things, in all the news, all the major issues, they will be avoided. And they'll just tell you about exteriors and little pinpoint history where everything's separate from everything else. And the more separate and grandiose the event, the better, because then they can just jump on it and then spin it like their own way, like with the LA riots. And then Newsom comes out and spins it like, oh, it's Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault. He made everybody mad. Like the logic of hell. That's the logic. I mean, it's such the fallacious logic. Just take a rhetorics class 101 and you'll see that among the many different categories of fallacious argumentation, that's one of them. You know, and you look at all that Newsom has ever said, everything is like fallacious logic. Look how they all love to start things the same way too. And the big politicians are talking like Obama or something. They said, now let's be clear. They always start it like that, you know. It's, you know, Hillary, let's be clear, you know, and then they say something and it's total wrapped propaganda. It's been memorized. They've had it ironed out by teams of people, like exactly the right package of words to discombobulate the general masses and try and dummy over the general public. So no doubt trying to find the right source, but it's not about me telling you what's the best source. That's for you to discover for your own. It's not me to tell you. I mean, and it's the same in all things, even in religion and finding your God, learning to discover your God. It's not who's to tell you, who's to tell me or you, who can tell that? It's an individual discovery in many ways, even from beyond our own family. We could be born in a family and have to, find ourselves called to a discovery, some new discovery that the rest of the family hasn't keyed into, you know? So seeking out the truth, it takes boldness and courage in all things. And it's not about just telling you who the most correct source of news is or who the best musician is or something. Like, they exist, but nobody's going to listen. Who cares what one person says? At the end of the morning, it's just one guy sitting here with one point of view. It's easy to marginalize. And anyways, after all, like, what good would it do telling you, where to go, or what, recommending things? Nonetheless, it's hard not to, right? It's hard not to recommend the best of things when you see it around you, when you find the best music or the best movies. Not to talk about the best movies ever, but most people don't, because they don't try to find the best movies. They're sleepwalking in essence. They're sleepwalking through art, and that's why they're film consumers, and they're music consumers. Everything changes once you set out to create music. You'll start to realize, but you can't do that until you get inspired in the first place. You have to, and so we all have to approach it from both directions. First, we're babies, and we grow up, and even when we're grown up, we're total babies as far as music goes. Most of the people in all of the world, doesn't matter what tradition of music you have access to. And it's like you're probably a baby because you don't try to listen to other mystical musical traditions. And so there are certain traditions that are probably better in the world, but it doesn't matter. If you stay in that one musical tradition and say, this is the best, I'm not going to listen to anything else, it's a real loss of character for you. That's for sure. You lose a total ability to empathize and understand people from other parts of the world who have different musical styles. And that there are actually people within those musical styles who accomplish sublime realities. And, they hit upon divine musical expressions, which can be awakening for our hearts and our wide eye, our spiritual eye. Can be awakening for sure. But it doesn't really come from, I say, but it's hard not to. It's hard not to talk about those things. So of course I do. I break out in recommendations of books and music and film and art and all sorts of things for all of the world. I break out, but you can be assured I'm not giving you the best. I'm not giving everything away. I've given you so much. And so the general silence and apathy proves the rule of, it's you're on your own, folks. You're going to have to discover it. And it's like, just have to ask yourself, try to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, have you discovered the most sublime and beautiful music that you could? Have you gone deeply into it? Have you discovered the people out there who are reporting news who actually have a deep, heartfelt commitment to the truth, and that having a breadth of all the news that's going on everywhere, trying to open up to new ideas and new voices, and to listen to people dissenting against their voice and hear what they say and so forth. Or are they just sitting there in an echo chamber, only listening to voices that approve them immediately and agree with them? You've got to ask those questions. So you're on your own. I've given you quite a lot, and well, that's just the way it is. I'm a giving person, and I overflow. My heart is overflowing. And as Shakespeare said, Hamlet, from the abundance of a heart, a man speaks. So that's it. There's really no subject and every subject all at once, in fact, because I'm giving you a lot. I'm giving you all so much. And I know. So that's probably going to be all unanimously ignored and scorned and not appreciated in any way. Not liked, even. Not liked. You don't even like my stuff. For the vast majority of all of my work and all of my stuff, there's 0 likes, because having 2 to 3 likes on most of my videos is basically 0 on all of them, right? Not one of them has 10, even. Not one of them. 500 videos, not one of them. So it hits home. It hurts. I tell you that. It hurts. Your silent scorn, it hurts. And I'm going to tell you that. And I already know. I told my family that. My family has all that scorn, the same scorn. And when I tried to tell them that, just matter-of-factly, hey, that hurts. They went ballistic on me. They went ballistic, in fact. They shut me out of the family forever. They said, you can't ask that question. You can't say that. You have no right to say that to us, that we've hurt your feelings. They tried to just totally, they reject me in every way. So it was, well, they know the results of that kind of temperament, of their obstinacy. What their obstinacy does, the violence inherent in their obstinacy and the refusal to listen to truthful speech is it's violent. It's deeply violent, and it alienates them. And I can see from even my own all my family, they act like this. Well, how could you expect anything different from all of the world? Even the family scorn me and scoff at everything I do on the interwebs, on YouTube and stuff, which was a big thing. I'm trying to create a presence on YouTube. Nothing, no support. Right, right. It's like, oh, because what? I've said something. I've come out and said that it hurts that you're not applauding me, and that just enrages them that I would say that instead of just keeping silence and letting them just ignore me unto death. Just to ignore me to death is what their MO is. Instead of that, they will just be, well, I mean, I guess I get that either way, right? Either they'll ignore me to death, or I tell them that doing so hurts me, and then they're enraged, and so they're both ignoring me and they have silent rage against me, like all of this animosity and hatred, like I've done something bad. Oh, bullshit! I've been like the best of family members to all my family, all my life. I've been on good terms with all of you all my life. You have zero excuse. You have zero excuse. You just give yourself some subterfuge to say, oh, we don't like you anymore. You're no good. You're delirious. You're hypnotized. And you don't even know what the best things are. The way you ignore me, you've never even asked me for my opinion or recommendation on anything in any category, right? So you don't even know what you're missing. As a family, you would shun me to death, but you lose. You lose the Holy Spirit Supreme, even. You lose the biggest prize of all. You lose everything, and you fall after this life. Fall into samsara. Good afternoon.